What's up guys, it's your boy Christian back at it again with another video, and today I'm gonna be comparing the Tamron 28-75 versus the Sigma 24-70. Let's get right into it. So right off the bat, I'm just gonna tell you that I'm not gonna do any video side-by-side comparisons between the two lenses. There are a ton of videos out there that already do an incredible job, and if you really wanna see the difference between the two lenses quality-wise and pixel peep them, then go check out Gerald Undone's video between the Sony Tamron and the Sigma 24-70. He does a phenomenal job. I could never replicate such an incredible video that he's done. But in this video, I'm just gonna give you my practical use for the two lenses, because I've used the Tamron for about 2 years and I've used the Sigma for 3 to 4 months, and I've noticed some incredible differences between the two. And the reason I'm comparing these two and not the Sony is because they're the two more budget options. Obviously, at the end of the day, if you just have a ton of money to throw at gear, just go for the Sony. It's native to the Sony cameras and it's probably the best choice. I would say 80% of people don't have the money and wouldn't find it practical to just drop $3,000 on the Sony 24-70. So that's why it would probably be a lot more practical for people just getting started or looking for a more budget option to go for the Tamron 17-28 and the 28-75 Tamron for the same price that they could just get the one 24-70 Sony lens. So to kick it off, I've used the Tamron for about 2 years. I bought it when I initially got my Sony, right when the Tamron 28-75 launched. I've used it for 2 years. I've used it for all my video projects just up until 2 to 3 months ago when I got the Sigma 24-70. And I'll tell you why I upgraded. So the main reason I personally upgraded from the Tamron to the Sigma is because of the weather sealing. The thing with the Tamron is if you look online on Tamron's website, they don't say that it's weather sealed. They say that it's actually not weather sealed. But if you go on YouTube, you could find a few videos of people using it in the pouring rain and having zero issues. But what I found with the Tamron was my Tamron lens actually right here at the front, I had some water on top of the lens, and when I rubbed it to kind of get it off with a microfiber cloth, the water got into the seam and actually went underneath the lens. So I had to send the lens back to Tamron and they fixed it, cleaned it, and then I got it back. Whereas if it was totally weather sealed, that would not happen. The interesting thing is, because the Tamron lens is still not weather sealed, the Tamron customer service rep told me that water was still not supposed to go into the front. So I guess if you wrap the lens and you just leave the front element exposed, you should be fine. But I still had water go underneath that front element right on the sides. So that was just my experience with it. I might have had a faulty lens. I might have had one that wasn't screwed on properly. I don't know, but that's the experience that I had. That being said, the Tamron lens doesn't have the weather sealing gasket at the back. And in my opinion, the other place where it's probably not weather sealed is the seals on the focal length and the focus ring on the Tamron, where that's probably where if water was to go in, you might have a little bit of issue. Now, since the Sigma is fully weather sealed and has a weather sealing gasket at the center, is this thing called? It has a weather sealing gasket. It wins in that category simply because you know off the bat, since the manufacturer says it's weather sealed, and if you have issues with it, it's under the warranty because they claim it's weather sealed. So if the Tamron, people say that it is weather sealed and people have not had issues with it, if water does go in and your lens is destroyed because of that, because the manufacturer did not claim that it is weather sealed, you won't be able to get the warranty for it, even if you bought extended warranty or whatever kind of warranty you bought. Since the manufacturer didn't claim that it's weather sealed, you won't be able to get it fixed or changed or things like that. So just keep that in mind. So that's a point for the Sigma over the Tamron. So moving on to the second point, since the Tamron wasn't weather sealed, when you'd zoom in with the focal ring and it would be exposed like this, dust would actually go into the focal ring and show up inside the lens. Like you could see it inside and you wouldn't be able to clean it because it's inside the lens. So for me at least, after 2 years of use, I actually had a substantial amount of dust buildup inside the lens. Now, I didn't see it on my videos or my photos. I was pixel peeping and seeing if it would be there, but I didn't really have a proper comparison with another Tamron that didn't have that. But I could imagine after an exponential amount of time, it would end up making a difference. And if you saw how much dust I had, it would be a significant amount of dust and you'd say, okay, you gotta get that clean. So I did when I had that issue with the Tamron lens, since they said the water wasn't supposed to go into the front. They actually ended up cleaning the lens, and I used it for an extra 6 months after that before I sold it. But during that 6 months, I still had dust go into the Tamron lens, right? Not as much as I did over the course of the 2 years, but it was still a thing. So for a long time practical use, it's not the best just because dust is able to get in there. So that's another point docked for the Tamron and another point for the Sigma. One thing is I've had this lens for 3 months actually, and inside there is one kind of speck of dust that I can see on the edge. I'm not sure if that was from the focal length. Maybe I didn't notice it when it came from the factory. I don't think it came like that, but I do have one speck of dust inside there, perhaps for the same reason. I'm not too sure. I'm gonna give it some time and see if more appears. I just got it, so it would be covered under the warranty. For the time being, I just have that one speck of dust. No other issues with the Sigma. So that leads me on to the next point for the Sigma to the Tamron. The Tamron is full plastic body, whereas the Sigma is a full metal body. So you might assume that there's a substantial weight difference between the two, which there is. The Sigma is noticeably heavier than the Tamron. So if you want to kind of shoot light, or you're really concerned about the weight of your camera body and your camera lens, maybe you have a smaller gimbal, that is something to consider. The Sony body with the Sigma on it is pretty heavy. I think like a smaller gimbal like the RS2 or the Ronin Mini, I think they would be able to handle it. It might have a strain though when you're zooming in from 24 to 70, depending on where you end up balancing the lens. At the end of the day, it is a substantially heavier lens. But because of that, the Sigma, since it's full metal and it's not plastic, it's incredibly more sturdier. Over the course of the 2 years since it was plastic, I had to genuinely baby it a good bit because I was super unsure how durable it was. I did end up hitting it a couple times and it was fine and I had no issues, but since it is a plastic body, like a full plastic body, it doesn't have that same feel as like a full metal body does, and it just doesn't feel as durable in some environments. So since the Sigma has a way better build altogether, that's another point for the Sigma. So moving on to the fourth point, the Tamron is a 28 to 75, where the Sigma is a 24 to 70. So there is that 4mm difference between the two lenses. 4mm from 28 to 24 might not sound like a lot, but it is noticeable. If you go to Gerald Undone's video when he does the comparison, you actually see a good bit more of the room and what he's looking at and the view on the 24 rather than on the 28. So it does give you a good bit of a wider angle. So if you do want a little bit of a wider lens, maybe you don't have a proper wide angle and you think that the 24 will give you a better edge wide angle wise, definitely go for that. But if you feel like you'd be way better off at around a 30mm with the 28mm, then just go for the Tamron. So moving on to the fifth point, the Sigma has a button on the side, right? It has this autofocus lock button. It also has the autofocus to manual switch on here as well, and it has a focal length lock, which means that it locks essentially when you're at 24mm to not make it move as easy, but when you end up locking it and zooming in, it unlocks, so you're not gonna like kind of twist with it. The other thing that the Sigma has over the Tamron is what the f is this? The lens shade. The other thing that the Sigma has over the Tamron is the lens hood is actually, it locks, right? So here you have a button for it. It doesn't come off like any other lens hood. You have to press the button and then turn it. I didn't break it, but I really struggled with it, and then I was like, okay, this is not coming off for some specific reason, and that's because it has a button lock on it, whereas the Tamron just comes off easily. I've never had the lens hood kind of just come off because of play or in the field, but it's something to consider. As you may guess, the Tamron does not have any buttons or any switches on it at all, so if you did want to go from manual focus to autofocus, you'd have to do that within the camera, and you don't have this extra button on the side of it. Since I'm a videographer, I'm probably not going to use this button. I guess if you're a photographer and you want it to focus lock with the lens, it might be an advantage, but for me as a videographer, it wasn't a game changer. So now on to the last point, which is the price difference. The Tamron on Amazon pre-tax ends up being about $1,100 Canadian, and the Sigma is $1,600 Canadian. So there's about a $500 difference there. Personally, for me, seeing the Sigma stats and the build and all that, I would have gone with the Sigma when I initially bought it. But when I bought my A7 III, right when the A7 III came out, the Tamron came out at the same time. So I bought that, and then the Sigma lens came out, I wanna say 6 months or maybe a year later than that. So it came out after I had the Tamron. But if they were both out at the same time, today, getting into videography, I would probably go with the Sigma lens. That being said, it is a more expensive lens, so if you don't have that extra $500 to swing, instead of getting the Tamron, I would genuinely recommend waiting and saving up your money to go with the Sigma, because in the long run, I personally do think the durability, the extra 4mm, the dust not going into the focal length, and the weather sealing will make a way bigger difference. Because another thing I forgot to mention is with the Tamron, since it wasn't weather sealed, when I would be shooting outdoors, it would be kind of worrying to be like, okay, is it going to rain? Is it not going to rain? If it starts raining a little bit mid-shoot, am I just gonna be like, okay guys, this is over, I can't do this? Or am I gonna keep shooting and put my gear at risk? That's not something you wanna think about. And in my personal opinion, I think going with that extra $500 for the peace of mind, just for the weather sealing, in my opinion, is the difference breaker for me. And that's why I ended up actually going to the Sigma, was because where I live in Vancouver, it rains a good bit. It was something that I was constantly thinking about, constantly concerned about. Okay, is it going to rain? Is it going to rain? What am I gonna do when it rains? Will I not be able to shoot when it rains? Just pay the extra money, go with the better product, and you'd be way better off. That's it for me today, ladies and gentlemen. I really hope you found this video informative. It's your boy, Christian Kadar, and I'll catch you in the next one.